If you're here and you watch this channel, then you're probably familiar with bands such as Metallica, Korn, Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, and these are metal bands with its respective subgenres, but they are metal bands at the end of the day. Now, imagine if all of these bands were in the same festival on a course of 3 days. When you imagine Korn playing at a festival, you probably think Sick New World or maybe the Knotfest. These bands actually did play together at the same festival, except it was a festival marked as a peace festival. Now, imagine gathering a ton of metal fans from the 90s in a place that's basically just asphalt in 100 degrees weather. Food's super expensive and they take away the food you brought and the water you brought. And when you try to refill your water, there is a woman bathing in it. This was Woodstock 99. And if you don't know about this occurrence in the history of humanity, I feel like it's a very important thing in music, especially metal music. I feel like, of course, if you were alive during that time, if you're from the United States and or were into music back in 99, then you can probably tell what I'm talking about. But if you're part of the younger generation, or you just lived in another country, maybe you never heard coverage about this. Maybe this information just didn't reach you, or it didn't reach you at its full capacity. You may have seen the Woodstock 99 documentary that Netflix put out, but I still feel like it only reaches the surface of what it was, because they had the founders on the documentary, and I'm assuming they couldn't roast them too hard, but I'm absolutely going to in this video. This is CORNEA-SAL, and today we're going to be talking in detail about Woodstock 99, and this video will be covering the beginning of it. So, to understand Woodstock 99, first of all, we need to understand Woodstock 69 and 94. So, Woodstock 69 was during the Vietnam War. People in the United States were really mad that their soldiers were going to die on a super far away country in Asia. People were mad about this in general. The hippie movement made a point to show protest against it. Woodstock 69, in a way, was a counterculture festival against the war, promoting unity and peace, and they had anti-war ideals. There were problems, of course. A lot of people sneaked in. There were like around 400,000 people. There was heavy rain, which basically made the whole place muddy, and people were bathing in mud.
The Woodstock Music and Art Fair, a 3-day Aquarian exposition at White Lake in Bethel, New York, will give you uncomplicated, unhurried, calm days of peace and music. Friday, August 15th, you'll hear stars such as Joan Baez, Arno Guthrie, Tim Hart, Richie Havens, Ravi Shankar, and many others. Saturday, August 16th, Can't Heat, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Grateful Dead.
Looking at the whole image, it was a really good thing. Famously, Jimi Hendrix was there, and he played a cover of Star Spangled Banner. It was a unity and peace festival, right? And people had really good, everlasting memories of it, even with the lack of infrastructure and stuff. And then, okay, so as a 25th anniversary, in 94, they wanted to remake this. They hired people. Okay, so this is a little confusing, because, like, you know, like, it's a peace festival. Why are you hiring Metallica? I'm not saying Metallica is anti-peace, but they're not exactly promoting it either. So Green Day was there, Nine Inch Nails was there. Okay, so the mud was a problem again. They kept doing it in a farmland, so, you know, with the rain, it started being muddy again. And they actually named it Mudstock after the rain. So So it was pretty gross, alright? There were around 350,000 people in there. So the real news in 94 was that there were a lot of mud fights, but nothing outwardly horrible happened. Now, in 99, this is where that changes. 94 was a commercial failure because a lot of people, gate crashed and they got in without tickets. The infrastructure was not ready for that amount of people, and then they had to clean up, and that was more cost. In 99, it was kind of more corporate driven. This went by horribly. So first of all, it was no longer in a farmland, which I think is a good idea. It was in a worse place, which is a former Air Force base in Rome, New York. And I want you to imagine this. It's summer, it's 100 degrees out, and you're in a place full of asphalt, and there's no shade. There's just no trees at all. Sounds like a great outing! So it was extremely hot. There were no trees. So shocking, to hold a peace festival. So that's the place they chose, Cornea. What's going on? That place, maybe it's good that they used it. Wrong! It was hot as again, I remind you, it was hot as and you're in this place with no shade and just scorching sun. And not only that, but they took away everyone's water at the entrance. They took away all their water, they took away the food they had, and okay, a lot of festivals do this nowadays as well because they want you to buy stuff inside, which is not wrong by itself, there's a lot of restaurants that don't let you go in with your own drink. But mind you, so a normal water was around 69 cents in 99 in the USA, in New York, where this happened. And inside, it was $4. Compared to today's prices, it's as if they charged you $12 for water, which is insane and super expensive. So people were complaining. They had a little fallback on the situation. They were like, okay, you can bring your water in, you can buy it, but you also can just refill it for free on these tanks that they had over there. If everyone is taking away the water, they're instantly going to go to refill it inside. But hear this, there were a lot of people waiting. It was like a 20-minute wait to refill your bottle, and it was just not worth it, and people started getting mad about that too. And overall, there were around 100 cases of heat exhaustion and dehydration, of course, because they're under the sun for hours on end.
We woke up one morning, there was no damn water for like half a day, man. I mean, everybody was bumming and it was hot as hell. And excuse my language, but there were like no water, man. It was like they're trying to kill us in here.
There was a lot of frustration about $10 burritos, and $5 hot dogs, things like that. So that's what we were catching when people were coming by. They were throwing bottles at the vendors, and Woodstock, Michael Lang, and so that kind of did it.
The people who made the event weren't taking into account how hot it would be and how people who are literally going to be in crowds. So if you've been to any concert before, in the audience, people's body heat radiates on you too. So if it's really hot where you are, then imagine what it's going to be like in a crowd. It's going to be incredibly hot, and people were moshing. I don't even want to think about it was probably disgusting. I've been in concerts in the crowd. I've had field tickets for Meshuggah this year, and it was kind of gross, and it wasn't even 100 degrees. It was way less. So I just can't imagine what those people were going through. There were also long lines for food and water. So let's say you didn't want to refill your water on the tanks that were there, and you just want to buy water. You had to wait a long time for that too. So it was really annoying, and people were already getting mad on the first day. And mind you had to stay there for 3 days. You couldn't just go away and come back. You had to stay there. People were camping there at night. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the performers in Woodstock 99. So first of all, the first notable act, one that really confused me was Jamiroquai was there. It's just weird to think that Jamiroquai played on the same festival as Korn. So James Brown played, and he was actually kind of salty because he wanted to be paid in full before playing, and the promoters were like, no, that's not happening, and he was getting madder, and he wasn't coming out, and people were getting anxious. He did come out eventually. And then I found a statement, Sheryl Crow, who she was I didn't know that much about her before this, and I felt so bad for her. She released a statement, an interview saying that she tried watching the documentary, but it was so traumatizing for her that she just couldn't. She felt really bad about it. And she said this: I watched part of it on the airplane a couple days ago. I had to turn it off. It was so disturbing and I remember it. You could look out and see girls who were topless on guys' shoulders, trying to get the MTV camera to sweep around in front of them and get on TV. And they were already throwing shit from the outhouses that were not set up right, that were leaking. At one point, some landed on my hand while I was playing bass during my favorite mistake. That's when we stopped. We played about 4 songs and I remember saying, nah, I'm not gonna do it.
Show my You'd have to pay way more than you paid to get in to see my
So the thing is that the crowd was already going wild. Insane Clown Posse was about to come on. The crowd was expecting Insane Clown Posse, you know? They were not expecting Show Crow. They were not expecting a calm vibe. They were not expecting peace. They were expecting heavy music. And when their expectations were not met, you know, people were going crazy, and there were so many topless chicks on Woodstock 99. On the first day, it was already becoming lawless, but this was manageable chaos, okay? And we haven't even gotten to the worst part yet. This is just like a minimal thing that happened in the middle of that. Then the Offspring came on, and back then the Backstreet Boys were really popular.
Ladies and gentlemen of Woodstock, a special treat for you all. The Backstreet Boys.
So they brought out dummies of the Backstreet Boys and started beating the shit out of them, which is pretty funny. You know, those are just like band shenanigans from the 2000s, well, almost 2000s. And the most important act of that Friday was Korn, which a lot of people were there to see Korn. And this is a little fun thing that I found in the middle of that. Jonathan Davis said, Insane Clown Posse wanted to fight us for some blah 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 that I don't understand, but cute people put them in their place and that was it. That was the only drama. And he said, I don't even know why they don't like us. I think they just like to start shit just to get press and start beef to get things going. I don't know, I was a huge fan of ICP. Okay, blah. And this guy from theringer.com said, so I reached out to Violent J and I asked him, hey Violent J, why were you so mad at Korn back in 99? And apparently Insane Clown Posse didn't have beef with Korn at all, and they really liked them. What happened was we did them in the lyric. You know what I mean? When we dissed them, it was an old lyric, so when we saw them, we apologized for that, and they had no idea what we were talking about. Insane Clown Posse, from the beginning, this guy says that they were outcasts. They were too rap for the rock crowd and too rock for the rap crowd. So Woodstock 99 actually accepted them, and in Insane Clown Posse's part of the festival, they actually threw these balls with money on them, and the crowd went wild, of course. So far, we got naked chicks, we got broken sewages, some groping, and then Korn came out, and I actually really love this performance. I think it's amazing. Basically, you know, I told you there were water barrels to get your water, to refill your water. So some people decided to get in there and bathe in it, rendering it undrinkable, of course. Seeing this, some other people who attended decided to break pipes, which in turn made drinkable water mixed with sewage, and therefore mixing water with the waste from the porta potties. The chemical bathrooms were already disgusting by themselves. There were piles of human waste, to not say the other word. So a lot of people were rolling in what they thought was mud, but in fact were rolling shit. Korn played, and then was time for Bush to come out, which is ridiculous, because you usually, at a festival, you put on the craziest or most energetic act by the end of it. You can't put a soft rock band after, it just kills the mood, you know? So the guy from Bush was actually like, oh, I don't know, like, this is scary, because imagine you're a pop singer and before you comes a Cannibal Corpse. Okay, it was not that extreme, but it was the kind of vibe. and people did calm down, but it wasn't for too long. So the last day ended and people went to sleep on the ground. I'm mostly talking about the band perspective, or like the rock perspective of the festival, but there was also a rave section and people were getting high, entering substances into their body. So there were a lot of wasted people by the second day, which was actually supposed to be the best day. You know, like in festivals usually, okay, at least right now, Saturday is usually the best day, and what you saw today is just the beginning of a huge shit show. And I'm gonna read some statements I found on Reddit about people who actually went there. So this person, Headshot Poncho, 11 years ago, says, after George Clinton on the first night, there was this rave in the hangar. I think Fatboy Slim was there. I remember thinking this is cool, but not really getting it because everyone was rolling. She was kinda effed up though. There were these girls, I mean like girls, they would get up and start crowd surfing. Some of them were topless, which was cool but got real scary real fast. They get tossed around, groped, stripped off their clothes. Some of them seemed pretty terrified. Security was pretty much non-existent to control that sort of behavior. So basically there was public essay going on. At one point, one of the poor girls was heading our way. My dad grabbed her leg, pulled her down, to cries of dismay from her would-be assaulters, and told me to give her my hoodie. It was a really somber moment, especially since I was high for the first time in my life. So it all seemed super surreal. She just kept saying she wanted to go home and didn't like it there. Also, there were neutral events that weren't necessarily good or bad, but more like just WTF, like people effing in the middle of a walking path, and in the mud pit near one of the toilets. By the end of the festival, I was so desensitized to us, I didn't even glance at that stuff. I honestly feel embarrassed for these people. People were just doing what they felt like doing. Also, the security there was pretty poor. So there were a lot of people who, as security, were actually volunteers, and others who got paid, but they were like 18-year-olds. Just imagine any 18-year-old, any teenager, you know, doing security for this massive event full of people expecting to get aggressive, even if it's in a playful way. Some of them, you know, like if you're someone who goes to metal shows, then you're expecting to mosh, you're expecting to have fun with it, you know. And a lot of, like, most people I've known in the metal scene, and me as well, you just want to have fun. You don't actually want to hurt anyone. Some of these people were taking the situation where, especially girls and young girls, were drunk or high and they were vulnerable. They took advantage of the situation to grope them. There were also reports of security officers being 18-year-olds that they hired, either selling their shirts and just wandering off into the audience, or accepting bribes such as substances for their shirts, or just as bribes to let them do what they want. Now, on the second day, everything just got way worse. So on the second day, the combination of a lot of heat and just poor infrastructure, expensive food and water, dehydration, exhaustion, and aggressive performances, which I believe were a part of it, but also we shouldn't take them as the reason why this got aggressive so fast, because there was obviously a problem here. And Saturday, Limp Bizkit played, and we're going to be talking about this in the next video. The people who were choosing the set list, person who was a co-founder, Michael Lang, didn't know who he was hiring for his festival, and he even admitted to this. He didn't even know what Korn's music sounded like. He didn't even know what these people were, and he says it so casually on the documentary, it makes my blood actually boil. You are completely oblivious of what kind of public this band attracts. I love the metal audience, I am part of it, but there's also people who can get really aggressive, and just hiring these bands for a peace festival actually shows that you're not doing a peace festival, you're just doing a corporate event to get profit off of it because you lost money in '94. I'm pretty sure Woodstock 69 wasn't by the same founder, but they kept having the same problems, problem with infrastructure, problem with overcrowding, and they didn't learn anything from it. That's why what happened, and why this needs to be talked about even more. And nowadays, I believe it's still an important subject. It's misrepresented as being led to destruction by Limp Bizkit, which we're going to talk about. People say this without realizing how truly horrible the organization and the whole purpose of the festival was. This was CORNEA-SAL talking about Woodstock 99, the first day, and it's already a long video because there's just so much to talk about on each day. If you have any experience on it, if you've heard anything about it, if you were there, tell me in the comments. If you weren't, then tell me in the comments to me what you think. And tell me if there's anything you can add on to this. I'll see you soon.